So this has got to be one of the thickest and heaviest watches I've ever owned. It's got a pretty run-of-the-mill movement. I mean, it tells the time and the date, but it has no other complications. And there's about as much chance of me wearing this to go diving as there is of me changing my name to Kevin. I love it.
My head is underwater. I thought I didn't need you, but while I'm drowning slowly, I realize that I've been missing you like crazy. My head is underwater, 'cause I thought I didn't need you. My lungs are wide open now, 'cause I realize I've been missing you like crazy.
So before we get into it, my name's Simon and I like to talk about watches. If you like watch content, click the little subscribe button in the bottom corner and go and check out some of my other videos. And don't forget to give this video an upvote, as likes really help the channel to grow. And if you can watch this video all the way to the end, even if you hate it and you want to turn the sound off and walk away from the screen, that'd still be really appreciated, as it makes a huge difference to YouTube's alcoholism, or algorithm, or whatever it's called. With all that out of the way, the watch I want to show you today is from a brand that you may never have heard of, unless you're a proper watch geek like me. But DOXA has actually been around since 1889, and in fact the company's origins can be traced back to 1880, when a mere 12-year-old Georges Ducamont from Le Locle in Switzerland was sent out by his parents to go and get a job to help them feed him and his 12 siblings. The 12-year-old George got a job as an apprentice watchmaker, but just 9 years later, at the tender age of 21, he founded his own company making pocket watches. Today, DOXA is known for professional dive watches, the first of which was made in 1967, more than 30 years after George's death. George's son-in-law, Jacques Nardin, had taken over the running of the company. The grandson of Ulysse Nardin, Jacques made a very wise decision of consulting with legendary diver Jacques Cousteau and the US Divers Group in the development of its first dive watch, ensuring the watch was a resounding success and leading the company to focus on that segment of the market thereafter. Now, DOXA is a brand I've been aware of for a few years, but it was only actually earlier this year that I started to think that I might own one. You see, back in June, with our summer holiday or vacation to Greece fast approaching, I set off on a mission to find my perfect holiday watch. I decided I wanted a watch that was analog, or maybe ani-digi. It had to have a white or brightly coloured dial and strap. I wanted something with good water resistance so I could take it in the ocean. And it had to be tough enough to not worry about knocking around if I was playing by the pool with the kids. Finally, it had to cost no more than about £1,500, say $1,800, as I'd only just bought my Black Bay Pro a month or two before. I was immediately drawn to the Breitling Endurance Pro, which I really like the look of, and I was really impressed with how light it is. But at 44mm, it was just far too big for my wrists, and even pre-owned ones were trading well above my budget. I really like the look of the Casio G-Shock GBX 100, which was right at the other end of the price scale, at about £120 or say $160. But that was neither analog nor ani-digi, and it didn't really feel as well made as other G-Shocks that I've seen. And I didn't really like that kind of silver bezel that it has on it, and felt that that would probably get scratched pretty easily. So this led me to DOXA, and in particular to the Sub 600T, which was right in my price range. And while DOXAs are available in all sorts of bright colours, I really like the new Whitepearl edition, and that's what I eventually bought. The Sub 600T is a reissue of a model that DOXA first launched in the 1980s, and as the name implies, it has a depth rating of up to 600 metres. so it's a proper professional dive watch. I love its retro looks with the angular faceted case design and that integrated strap. The case itself is only 40mm, and with a lug-to-lug measurement of just 47.6mm, it should wear really nicely, even on smaller wrists like mine. Emphasis here on the word should, but I'll explain what I mean about that later. It's nearly 15mm thick, so it's a pretty chunky watch, but the whole look of it reminds me almost like a baby version of the Royal Oak Offshore. It feels incredibly well made. I mean, this FKM rubber strap is one of the thickest rubber straps I've ever come across, and that deployment clasp looks like it was engineered by Isambard Kingdom Brunel, and it'll probably outlast my grandchildren. I love that white dial with the black gloss hands that make it really legible and easy to tell the time. And the minute hand is slightly thicker than the hour hand, because divers don't really need to know about the hours for obvious reasons. While on first impressions the dial seems completely flat, the indices, which are diamond-shaped markers at 12, 6 and 9, with dots in between, are actually slightly raised. There's a date window at 3 o'clock, and the screw-down crown is at the 4 o'clock position, very similar to that you'd see on a Seiko SKX or the Seiko 5 Sport series. And that crown is signed with DOXA's trademark fish icon. On this version, that very flat bezel is sandblasted, and it offers a really nice contrast between the highly polished surfaces on the top of the case. The bezel itself has a really aggressive knurling to it. It's really grippy, and it's designed to be very easy to turn, even if you're wearing diving gloves. Well, the inner ring of markings on the bezel are the minutes. The outer ring has a depth scale, and it's designed to help divers work out if they need to make decompression stops on the way back up to the surface, depending on the depth that they've been down to and the amount of time they've been underwater. Or that's as I understand it anyway, feel free to correct me in the comments. Inside this watch is Sellita's SW200-1 movement, which has a power reserve of 38 hours. It's based on the ETA 2824, which is a workhorse of a movement. It's relatively accurate, and it's easy to service. With a retail price here in the UK of £1,300, or about $1,700, for a really well-made and robust professional dive watch, from a brand that's highly respected, I'd say that this offers really good value. My only complaint, and it's a pretty big one, is that the height and the weight of this watch make it pretty top heavy. It weighs 162 grams, even on this FKM rubber strap, so on the optional stainless steel beads of rice bracelet, it must weigh even more. And it wears bigger than those modest dimensions would suggest. Even as tightly as I can get it on my skinny wrists without cutting off the blood supply, the watch head still moves around quite a bit. I mean, someone with a bigger wrist girth probably wouldn't have the same problem. But certainly on holiday, there was one day I found where I'd worn it all day in the sea, snorkeling, and then jump in and out of the pool. And by the end of the day, the ulnar bone, that bit on the top of your wrist that sticks out, felt like someone had taken sandpaper to it. And for that reason, as much as I love this watch, I'm yet to decide whether it's going to be a keeper. So guys, I'd love to know what you think of the DOXA Sub 600T, so please let me know in the comments. And also tell me what your perfect holiday or vacation watch is. As ever, thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you on the next one.